tricks like that, but what we focused on was strategies that helped kids understand why those tricks worked, like why those algorithms worked, rather than just memorizing a raw algorithm that then they couldn't do without pen and paper. The other students who actually engaged in the strategies behind those algorithms, they were able to do this math in their head. So that doesn't seem like a bad thing necessarily, but I do think there's a lot of, like, we lean on a lot of hatred of Common Core just because a lot of people struggle with it not being like it was when they grew up, like math is being taught differently. But I mean, I guess we can argue about the results.
I can speak to that because obviously I was not raised on Common Core. I was raised on memorization, lining the numbers up to do math, so on and so forth.
By the way.
But my kids obviously are learning in a more Common Core direction. And it was the most frustrating thing. I understand what you're saying, Ryan. When I started seeing what they were doing math-wise, I said, oh, it's not just memorization. They're teaching like applicability and concepts so that you can kind of think outside the box in order to put it together. I get it. But at the same time, when I showed my kids my way and how to do it, because I was like, fuck this, whatever you're doing, fuck this. And I showed them my way, instant, like they were like, oh, I get that. That makes sense.
Well,
right?
Yeah, of course. It's easy to apply the algorithm, but what you're losing out on that is an understanding of why that algorithm works. So you're losing the opportunity to have a better foundation for higher maths later that you're kind of robbing them of by just having them memorize this trick that they can use that they don't have no idea why that trick works. You know?
So Ryan is giving the pitch for Common Core, and I'm not mocking you for it. I've heard the
I'm not saying Common Core is like perfect or anything. I think it has a lot of problems, and I'm not like I'm not attached to one specific version of Common Core, which is why I think it's probably also good that, like, you know, schools, I believe, and states have the opportunity to implement Common Core in a variety of ways, right? We can have experiments with how they do Common Core.
Well, they have limited experiments because they lose their federal funding if they experiment too much and they don't do Common Core anymore. But the thing about Common Core ultimately is that parents hate it. And the number one correlate between how much they hate it is how much they know about it. Like the more they learn about it, the more they hate it. And students kind of seem to hate it. Teachers kind of seem to hate it. And the problem with it ultimately is it was not correlated with any gains academically. Scores haven't increased. So the problem with Common Core is that it creates all this resentment. Nobody seems to really like it except for pockets of enthusiasts, and it doesn't work. It's just like that. That's the other problem. Like the numbers just aren't there. Education hasn't gotten better. So it's not the kind of thing that I think needs to be, let's say, core and forced in that sense, where it needs to be similar across all states. I think there are kids, and I was one of them, who actually learned math the kind of way you're describing, and it works well for them. That it worked well for me in that regard, because that's just how I think about numbers. But I don't think that works for everybody, and I don't think it's worked nationally, unfortunately. It would be great if it did.
I'm not sure about the exact, I mean, I haven't like dug into this data specifically. I would be curious about, like, when we say it hasn't worked, I mean, if the scores that are being graded upon are also evolved with that, then we'd have to, it'd be difficult. Maybe, I'm sure there are mappings that do this, like comparing exactly like what the scores were before with the different curriculums and how they've changed. Like if I guess what I just as I guess the enthusiast you mentioned, and I'm not like, again, my heart's not like attached to Common Core. I just used it in these ways, and it was very helpful with the students I was working with. And like I don't know the results are inherently bad or that we couldn't see them differently. Yeah. But another thing you brought up was
just 1619. Give you the data, like this is just, it's not complete, but just from my notes.
You can send it in the back or whatever. That's fine. But like another thing you mentioned, which I understand, a lot of these are like quips that you kind of lean into. But fundamentally, there was a lot of agreement on problems with the Department of Education, and then there was this kind of like faux sense that she was agreeing with you about abolishing it because of those agreements with problems that it has, when I don't think that was necessarily there. And like, again, one of these quips you leaned on was this idea of the 1619 project. You brought this up a couple times. The 1619 project, you understand, they don't teach that the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution were signed in 1619, right? Like that's not what's going on in these documents.
No, I understand. The point I was making there, and I think it is an important point, is that if national education policy is decided in DC, and that we lean into a one-size-fits-all curriculum, then what you will see predictably is that national politics will influence your child's education, which most people are not comfortable with. Most people are not comfortable with the idea that ed policy in your kid's school and your kid's college will dramatically shift depending on who won the last election. I think most people would prefer, especially parents, that we leave our kids out of our political fights, and that this is not the place for that. Like, education should be the place where we're teaching core skills, core American philosophy, like the things you need to know to be a citizen, and not leaning into this political stuff that we're fighting over constantly on the internet, because it's just not shit our kids need to be inundated with. And if ed policy is decided on a national level, I think that's an inevitable outcome. And we saw that happen in the Biden administration. We're seeing it happen now in the Trump administration. I don't see why that would change with the next administration.
Sure. I think it's fair to not want to see that that like policy tug administration to administration. I don't see that if we're talking about like things like Title IX and title, like the other relevant titles here, like if these are being shifted to other federal departments, and after this I'll yield and let someone else jump in. If these are being shifted to other federal departments, that still has the same problem, right? Like Biden implementing Title IX in a specific way. I think you were saying that the Big Beautiful Bill shifts Title IX to a different department, right?
No, it's a different thing. It's part of the Trump's plan to move things around, but it's not part of the Big Beautiful Bill. But that's a detail. It doesn't matter. Keep going.
Okay, sure. So they haven't actually. So Title IX would be if we did abolish the DOE tomorrow, Title IX would be dead in the water.
No, Title IX would be moved, but it wouldn't be moved.
Sorry. The enforcement mechanism would be dead in the water for the moment, right? If we abolish the DOE
under the Trump plan. I was only technically correcting you. It's not part of the Big Beautiful Bill. It's part of a separate plan. Under Trump's plan, Title IX would be moved into the DOJ.
Like it would still exist. It just the law won't be abolished.
Well, I guess again that doesn't address the whole, like what you're talking about, the political sway of like Biden could then just use the DOJ to enforce Title IX the way he did with transgender children, which was struck down before Trump came into office, right?
It's not a perfect solution. It's just a necessary first
step.
Well,
it's not perfect. It's that it has nothing to do with abolishing the argument you made relevant to Title IX and the political whims. It's completely agnostic to whether or not the Department of Education exists, right? Like the political winds changing, it just has nothing to do with whether it's there.
No, not really.
Are you saying there needs to be a more complete solution, and we need to just make sure that at the federal level they acknowledge the 10th Amendment and just stay the fuck out of things? Because I think that Ryan and I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying I'm down for reforms and stuff, but like I'm just criticizing the argument that Ryan made.
The first step is abolish the DOE, but then you got to do like 8 more steps to get where Joshua and I would want to go. Like it's only step 1. But the truth is, even step 1, which I would admit is an imperfect solution, is better because the people who would be implementing these regs wouldn't be DOE bureaucrats. The problem with DOE bureaucrats is that they think they know better about how to educate kids. The nice thing about putting it in DOJ is, there might still be some political wins, but at least the people there are there for civil rights stuff, not for education stuff. So they're just less likely to make a hash out of it because it's not their number one issue. But I do agree with Joshua. We would this would be step 1, and then from there you would need to start really taking more aggressive steps to return power to the states. But you got to start somewhere.
Well, I'll just close out with, frankly, that sounds kind of like vibes. Like you're saying, it feels like bureaucrats, these bureaucrats in these positions, like they just want to do these weird esoteric policies that they think are fantastic, and like that's just your gut about these things. But I don't know why these people are choosing the policies they are. I don't know if it's because they are like whimsical and have these fantastic ideas, or if they are backed in like certain data and certain things that I feel like you haven't really provided the evidence.
Bad ideas in a row? How many bad ideas would these bureaucrats need to come up with before you think, holy shit, these are not the bureaucrats for us? Like No Child Left Behind.
Education's complex.
Common Core fucking
sucked.
The idea regs fucking suck. All their new initiatives make things worse. So I feel like I would be very happy to have somebody else take a spin at the wheel.
I'll let Duck go, but yeah, I'm not convinced that all of these things that you mentioned. I agree, all these things have like problems that are imperfect, but the idea, like, I feel like the language here is very loaded. That they're all catastrophic disasters. That these programs are all making everything worse, and I feel like it's all kind of loaded, so that it makes your position feel stronger than it actually is. But I'll yield to Duck.
Well,
it's
Ryan, man, it's so funny. We had a debate with 2 teachers, and we disagree on our prescription, but we both agree that these programs are catastrophic. So I'm not sure what you're saying, buddy.
That's fine. But like, if I brought up a teacher who disagreed with you, then we couldn't make that argument anymore, right? Which I guarantee there are. So I'm just.
All I'm saying is, we're making arguments based off the data these programs created, which is miserable, our own experience in teaching, and these being miserable, and the misery it created in the communities that we served. You're basing your argument off, as far as I can tell, fucking nothing, and yet you accuse me of making a vibes-based argument. I think you're projecting, buddy.
Both things can be true, right? Your gut feeling about those policies and your own personal anecdotal experience doesn't contradict everybody else's.
Right? Common Core and No Child Left Behind were so good.
I'm not saying that they were amazing. I'm saying they were imperfect.
Who's being vibes-based, Ryan? Like, come the fuck on.
I think we both are, and I'm just actually honest about it, and you're not. But go ahead, Doug.
Well, let me ask
what's the
you,
literacy
Ryan,
rate?
at what point do we stop being mediocre or gray area? And what point do we just say, you know what, something's just bad or something's just good, right? There is sometimes a black and white, and we can acknowledge that. And if we sit in the gray area for too long, eventually all of the you're only going to see the bad stuff bubble up, because that's the only thing that's really sitting within that. That's the only thing that we do know is bad, right? Like it's all we're left with.
I'm saying states already have a lot of room to experiment with things, and even as you mentioned, like Texas is doing it right now. They didn't need to abolish the Department of Education to start doing their own things, right? Like, sure, maybe they're getting less funding from certain things, but like, if they're still capable of experimenting, then that's a good thing, right?
By certain
things, you need the federal government. They can afford to, right? We can start there. I think Texas is a very, to my understanding, is a very well-off state. Like, they handle their business very well, and that's without utilizing state income tax or something to that degree. So if they're able to do it, it's because they financially position themselves with their own leverage that they can afford to do it. Not all, like Delaware. I know Delaware is a shithole. Right. Every time I drive through that place, Ryan, you're probably familiar, but anytime I drive through Delaware to get up to New Jersey or New York, it's like, I hate this place, but like even your southern states, I think what Georgia is like really underwater on a lot of things in their systems. They can't afford to say no. They can't afford to experiment. They can't afford those capabilities. So maybe if the federal government kind of forced that hand and just said, here, we're gonna give you money, figure it out, right? Maybe they can do it that way.
Or just cut down on the insane bloat that comes with these federal programs. Like what the DOE's really done is created a bureaucracy within our universities that's funded by putting our kids in tax debt, by massively increasing the price of universities, by subsidizing demand completely unnecessarily. It's created massive bloat on the state levels, because now, every state has to defend these IDEA lawsuits, which, as I was saying, in New York City is like a $600 million a year line item. And that's not even teaching. That's just the litigation aspect of it. So what these things do is they make education incredibly expensive and incredibly cumbersome. And it's not really that complicated. When you stack, as I think Lawyerchick put it well, you already have inefficient bureaucracies in a lot of these states. And then you stack another inefficient bureaucracy on top of it. And then you wonder, holy shit, why is things so inefficient?
So Ryan, this might be a conversation you're interested in having. So, when you position education as a bureaucracy, to me, my opinion is you lose a lot of the richness of what education is. And it's not meant to romanticize a concept, kind of the same way we do with John Locke or any of the early founding fathers thought. But if we think of like John Dewey, we think of, what was his name? Charles Saunders Peirce. We think of the early civil rights movement becoming intimately connected with education. It was a non-negotiable. To me, this is all evidence of responsibilities that we as Americans have given the Department of Education as the administrator of the institution of education, as one of them, right? And so if you talk about an inefficient bureaucracy, which is patently economic thinking, what would you have the audience know about, like, what do we get back from thinking about efficiency in education?
Well, I think thinking about efficiency in education is absolutely critical, because efficiency is what's crushing education. Like, the reason I kept talking about New York City's numbers is because I know them, because I teach there. So it's a thing. I'm just more familiar with the data. But, like the idea that you're going to spend next year, $36,000 a kid to get data that shit is what, like, in terms of romanticizing it, I think what we do is we say, oh my God, if only we put more money into the system. But in some districts like New York, it's an unbelievable amount of money that's already going into the system. The problem is it's being really inefficiently utilized. Now, some of that is because New York City is very expensive, real estate's very expensive, teacher salaries are higher, there's a very strong union, which is very expensive. There's factors like that. And there's factors that relate to the federal government and the bureaucracy that's imposed through things like IDEA lawsuits. And underfunding, like IDEA is supposed to be covering at least 40% of special ed costs, and it covers 12. So, they take the money, but they actually doesn't even cover the obligations of the program. So what you end up having is this romanticized idea of what schools could be, which is disconnected from the reality of the burdens they operate under. Like, and I know this is a long answer, sorry. But like, one of the things that happened when I was a charter school teacher, we had less money per year than DOE schools in New York, because we didn't qualify for full federal funding. So, and we were being funded by the charter group. So we actually had less money, but we had better results, and we paid the teachers more. And the reason was we didn't have union contracts and all these other things that make it impossible to run a school system efficiently.
So I interviewed at a charter school to teach economics once. This was like close to 10 years ago, right? This was after my first tech job. And yeah, it's clear to see why some charter schools do perform well, right? You have some people with master's degree, something post-secondary, whatever it is, that are teaching subjects, especially at the high school level, when people when people can deliberately think about like college readiness, and so this is to me that is a perfect example that illustrates why the public school system operates the exact same way. People in high school are also thinking about college readiness. Parents should be thinking about college readiness. You should be thinking about your readiness to enter the workforce and start doing like some of the basic adulting things. And to me, like, we can say that, well, you throw charter schools in the room, you look at the results, and you say, well, this is obviously where inefficiency is. Charter schools can find inefficiencies in market based on real estate and the stuff you mentioned in New York City. And for them, life is just a little better. Life is a little bit better. And some people can see that, but public schools are the exact same thing. It's the exact same process, exact same people. And so I don't, as someone who went to like one of the best school districts in my state, there's nothing wrong with it. One of my friends, Ryan, got a master's degree in history. Mm-hmm. And so like, and she went back and she actually became a teacher at the high school I graduated from. Yeah.
Not the best thing about charter schools is, as someone who worked at one really good one and one really bad one before I went to law school, the good one is still in business. The bad one no longer exists. That's my favorite thing about charter schools.
But what was so bad about the bad one, Ryan? I've been thinking about this. If there's good school and there's bad school, what makes the
second
great
school made the giant error that was, well, first they were poorly run, so they filed their paperwork badly, and this is a kind of a legalistic thing, but that cost them a year of data analysis. So like they were inefficiently run in a way that actually cost them in the long run and shortened the lifespan of the school. So that's issue one. Issue two is that we were working in really economically disadvantaged areas of Brooklyn. In fact, like the second school I was working at was like a block from the Marcy projects where Jay-Z historically grew up. So, like we were like right in this area. There were guns outside. There were shootings outside the school. Like it was a fairly rough neighborhood. And they had this brilliant idea. And it's like a classic good intentions, oh my God, what were you thinking thing, that they were going to teach kids the way that white privileged kids were taught. Because why should we talk down to these kids? Let's give them the same education they get in the suburbs, right?
Sure.
So they focused 100%. On whole word instruction. But it turns out that whole word instruction works to teach kids how to read in the suburbs because the kids already know how to read before they go to school. And whole word instruction just makes them faster. But if you're teaching kids who don't learn how to read at home, you have to teach phonics. You can't teach whole word instruction.
Okay.
So the methodology they selected for their core literacy instruction was based off an ideological presupposition that was just frankly wrong. And as a result, they just didn't teach any fucking kids how to read. So the data was terrible.
So to me, that's like a really interesting story. But like where we are today, it doesn't have anything to do with what I would say. So what I would say is that it doesn't have anything to do with the institution of public education. My opinion or my belief is that it becomes the case that schools can improve outcomes. Schools can produce specific outcomes. Teachers are a part of that. Parents are a part of that. The community is a part of that. And saying defund, saying that, there's a documentary on a charter school in LA in the ghetto, in whatever the ghetto is, that shows this school is performing so highly. This isn't evidence that we ought move away from a system that's already responsible for educating so many people and historically has done so very well.
Well, the issue that I have, and this is not about
problems. This is not about
Ryan.
Sorry, real quick, because you're so polite and I hate interrupting you. You're one of Sarah's best main speakers, but I mean this. If people just recognize that, look, it doesn't matter where you are in the United States. We need to graduate 10 to 20,000 PhDs each year. And so as a parent, your goal should be that my kid, my kid personally may not be a PhD when she's older. But if she is not aware of what that means, I don't think I would have thought that I could have gone back and done something differently. I don't think there's a problem with me saying that.
Yeah, I don't think that really interacts meaningfully with the topic. I think that I told the story about the charter school because the charter school got closed. There were lots of schools in the New York City public school system that made the same error, but they didn't get closed because they were insulated by layers of bureaucracy. My problem with bureaucracy in education is that it insulates schools from the results of their choices. And if in a market, if you make a shitty choice and you have a shitty product, you go out of business eventually. In education, because it's a government bureaucracy and it's a government monopoly, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it often takes decades before we realize that we just screwed up a generation of kids and we didn't give them what they needed. And I would like the system to be more responsive. And the only way I can think of to make the system more responsive is to make it as local as possible, because that's where the parents are who care and really want it to be good. The more bureaucratic and broad and national you make it, the more it's going to be responsive to politics and other forces, but it's not going to be responsive to the needs of that community.
Speaking of teaching people, allow Tom Carpenter to be your teacher, teaching you how to donate appropriately and what we like to see on screen, as he sends yet another beautiful red color to put up here. Tom says, "Happy Thanksgiving to the Tomato Clan. choose love, spread happiness, give hugs, and take no shit. I love it. I love it. And I love it so much. Thank you, Tom, so kindly. And happy Thanksgiving back to you and Jax. And may it be a fun. I think somebody earlier said that we're serving duck for Thanksgiving. So, Duck, you are officially on the menu, apparently. And
I thought I would be
Weevil,
on the dais, not Sarah. I thought I would be on the dais, not on the dinner plate. This is a first
Fair
for
enough.
me.
Thumpy Weevil, you're
second.
for the kids table. You're at the kids table, Duck. Thumpy Weevil says, why not argue about the parents outside of school to continue teaching? School isn't daycare. And I believe Ryan, number one, you were referring to that earlier, and Lawyer Chick as well. I believe you were both speaking to that when I asked about homeschooling and how the education system has been set up to be a daycare with a little bit of additional learning in place. Did you want to add in on this concept?
I mean, I agree. I totally agree. I think that we spend a lot of time in our ed system doing stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense because parents need a place to put their kids so they can go to work. And that's a large part of what we're paying for. And if we were honest about that, we could pay for it more cheaply.
I really resent this, like wanting to spend less money on education. It's starting to grate on my nerves. And I just wonder, do you have the same criticism of the Department of Defense? Do you talk about going into the bloat or the fact that, the Department of Defense has had so many audits and that we're not, looking at that. So I just want to put that out there. But in terms of
I'm a budget hawk.
Okay,
I think the national debt is the thing of all the crises. The one that is most likely to really negatively impact my children's future is the national debt. So I am delighted to cut federal spending wherever we can cut it.
Well, we'll see. And I think that cutting education or, food stamps or these little are like drops in the bucket to what would really solve the problem. But I want to talk to the parent comment quickly. Not all parents are created equal.
That is true.
Doesn't mean that the kids are the property of the state.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck?
I want to hold on.
That's all I'll say to that.
Thumping Weevil, this was your super chat. If you wanted to add in on this or expand a little more.
And we're trying to...
Weevil?
Well, I just want to say that I feel like a lot of these, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking there's a delay on you, Weevil. Do you want to jump out and back in again?
Jump on it.
Yeah,
like a pogo stick.
There's definitely a delay.
I don't see it as like necessarily a bad thing that like public schools are also like kind of serve as a practical daycare. I mean, daycare is extremely expensive, and I don't see that as necessarily. I mean, fair enough. Like we could be more clear that that's part of it. I don't know who's like beating around the bush and saying it, like arguing that it's not in some part serving as a daycare. I don't know who's arguing that, but I mean, yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
I'll join the socialist on that one.
But what if parents? I've got a question. I got a question for Lawyer Chick, and maybe Ryan has ideas on this too. Maybe Ryan thinks about this. So, what if I were to say that, look, some parents are really passionate about education. This affirms your point that not all parents are the same or equal, whatever it was. But it's also the case that some parents will look into advancing their own children's education in the technical sense, and they'll realize they are putting their head in someone else's business, or it feels like it's not a match, it's not a fit, it's sort of wobbly. And so it seems to me that, like, if you look under the surface of our human nature or what we do in society, it doesn't mean a whole lot to say that not all parents are the same or not all parents are equal. It seems more to me that, like, look, some parents, myself included, when I was a new dad, needed to learn how to go fuck myself. That was the core skill of being a parent.
I don't know what do you mean by that?
What do you mean? So if I don't know something, or I'm not equipped to handle a situation, is it the case that there's a way to solve it? Or is it the case that I need to be more critical of myself?
I educate myself,
go
sir.
fuck myself.
Yeah.
I do that. I go educate myself. I get involved in whatever the issue is.
Something else. Oh, I understand.
About it.
No,
and when I say not all parents are created equal, I mean, not that not all parents know or as skilled. Some parents really aren't involved. And some parents really let their kids raise them. And so, you know, all parent, I mean, I don't have to tell you all, you're all probably parents. Parents are different across the gamut. So to say, well, parents really care about their local schools. I mean, when Michelle Rhee came into Washington, D.C. and was shutting down schools, parents were begging for the schools to stay open. They wanted neighborhood schools. And Michelle Rhee, who was the very, very controversial chancellor of the D.C. public schools for a few years, I remember her making a speech and saying, these parents should want a new school. They should want us to shut down these schools and make better schools. That's what they should want. And it's like, who the hell are you coming into a city you've never lived and telling parents what they want and shutting down their neighborhood schools? And these parents were like fighting to keep these schools open. So not, you know, the parent, I mean, we should listen to parents, of course, but not all parents are the same in terms of how they advocate, what they want, how informed they are, how ready they were to even have
values are different.
Place.
But this is old. This is new.
Let me do a sound check real quick, Duck. Thumping Weevil, can you hear me?
If you can hear,
yeah,
us,
I can hear you, but it seems like it's glitching on my end.
Yeah, there's another delay. I want you to jump back out, do a whole refresh or something, and then try to come back. It's completely delayed. There's like a whole 10 seconds in between. So let's go ahead and we'll try it again.
It's my end. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. It happens. All right, try again. Ryan. Yeah, Ryan. Jesus.
Yeah, I know. What did I do? Jesus. You know, it's funny. This reminds me of I did a debate with Soy Pill once. And I think what we were debating the need for the U.S. mail service, and he took the position that, and it kind of reminds me of these kind of like the classically lefty position, where he's saying like the right to vote by mail is so essential that if there's one woman living on a hill somewhere and that she would not get mail service because it's too expensive for like Amazon or US or UPS to deliver to her, that it would justify the entire national apparatus to ensure that she could vote by mail on election day. And I think sometimes we do get that thinking with federal policy, where we say, if we don't federalize it, then there's the risk that there's going to be parents who do a bad job with their kids. And as a result, their kids get a bad education. And the news flash is there are parents who do a bad job with their kids, and their kids currently get a bad education. That's not actually fixable. Like,
that's a really fucked up thing to say. That's not productive. That's not helpful. I don't see why you're trying to lead this conversation.
It is this.
Duck, welcome to reality.
Day. Welcome to reality. When I was teaching with all
welcome to reality
in
indeed.
place that we're talking about.
Yeah, this is the world.
Like, I just true story. I went, and at the school I worked at, we did parent visits. So I would visit every student before the school year started to create a relationship with the family. While I'm visiting the mom, she was ordering drugs from a delivery service and trying to use code language. Like, I wouldn't figure out what the fuck she was doing. Now, the odds
it's normal to order 5 gallons of milk
is going to have the same level of educational attainment in 10 years as my daughter is infinitesimally small, and there's nothing that we're going to do societally to normalize that, because it turns out good parenting is a really big advantage. We're not here to cosmically right the scales. What we are here to do is provide the best education system possible. And the idea that we're going to have some kind of utopian system is part of the problem, because when you're focused on utopia, you never make the hard calls and the trade-offs that actually make things better.
Okay, that's
trade-offs being that a lot of children get disproportionately worse and worse education.
Thank you. Thumping Weevil, are you with us?
Man, send in a dono and get a better internet.
I think it's still Weevil. I don't think it's working. I'm going to go ahead and remove you. Try again.
Now let Duck spaz out.
Doc,
Doc.
and then Ryan number two.
So, so this is a way to clarify thinking. Ryan, you and I probably agree on this, is that your personal experience is, I'm sure, very strong. I won't disagree with your personal experience. In terms of evidence of the Department of Education, per the topic of the evening, a particular case is not necessarily generalizable, or it actually is generalizable in the things that actually matter. And so it shouldn't be the case. I think it is the case that people like you and lots of people should care, but they should care about all of it, not just some of it. And saying that there's just not a solution, or you are living in utopia, is automatically stealing the spotlight from people who want to solve the problem. And I think there's a lot of us in the audience tonight who are saying, I'm going to sit here and I'll wait. Let me let you finish your thought. Why don't you tell us all who this is for? Who are you helping right now?
Who's he talking to?
I have no idea.
Anecdote.
Nobody
No, he's
knows
just being
what Doc
Doc.
is doing.
It's not an
You
anecdote.
told him to spurg out, and he's spurging out straight up. It's a good show.
Well, I mean,
Are you
Doug, to be totally clear, the
think
story
Ryan
I
understood.
told
Go ahead, Ryan.
and the reality I was describing about that girl's educational career happened in the universe where the DOE is doing federal policy. So it's not like that was a creation of my preferences. That's a creation of today's status quo. Now, the reality is that in order to fix a system, you have to be critical of it. If your baseline assumption is we can in no way modify or take away the parts that don't work, then you're never going to make the system better. And recognizing that some of this shit doesn't work is an important first step. But if anecdotes don't move you, Duck, I'll refer you back to the data I cited, which is that since we have implemented the DOE, our national educational markers have been flat, but our spending per student has nearly tripled. So it's not that we're just spending more money, we're spending more money and getting fuck all in return. So
It's
I don't
either over my
understand,
head or
like, if you want to make a
it's
data
over my
point,
head or
I'm
it's
not sure what
underneath
the
me.
justification for the DOE is.
It's either over my head or it's underneath me. I don't know which
I
one.
agree, Doug.
Sorry.
I agree, Doug. Yeah.
I'll give
And
it back
actually,
to
so
you.
I wanted to ask Ryan, because I actually side with Lawyer Chick a lot on
Come back,
everything.
Doc.
Pretty much everything she was saying, I kind of agree with. One, I don't care how much money we spend. I really don't. Essentially, we're taking from the 20% anyway to basically fund everything. Essentially, like, I don't believe you're in the 20%. I know I'm not. I don't believe anybody on this panel is in the 20%.
You don't think we're taking from the middle class?
Like, for real, let's be real, okay? We're
Yeah,
taking from the 20% to
I
fund
think that
this.
most of it comes from the middle class.
Yeah, I would say that most of it comes from the 20%.
Okay.
What's the
So rich
20%?
I would,
We talk about
well,
the
first of all,
wealthy.
just to be totally clear, just not trying to be an asshole, but I am a practicing attorney, so I'm not trying to pretend that I'm
that's
like
fair.
that I'm
That's
broke.
fair.
I'm definitely not.
I
But
mean, that's fair.
yeah, I'm just not trying to be an asshole.
We
but
are now accepting all donations,
Yeah.
Yeah,
especially
that's-
from
it-
rich lawyers.
You know, I take
I'm a
retainer as
practicing
donation.
attorney,
You
and I
can just
make what
be.
practicing
Thank you
attorneys
for your
make,
money.
so, yeah,
Thank
but
you for your
the
money.
point, the more
You
important point.
realize you're paying for protection, right?
Yeah.
From
The-
us.
What
We
I'm-
are the mob.
Actually, what I'm saying to you, Clay, is that
Mhm.
you're wrong about who pays, because when the
Really?
government deficit spends and
Mm-hmm.
they print money and they inflate the deficit, what that
Mhm.
does is it creates inflation, and
Mhm.
inflation is a tax on people who cannot put their money in inflation-proof assets. So the thing about the wealthy is that they're going to put their money in stocks and real estate. And when inflation hits, that shit goes through the roof, which is why people are pointing out, oh my God, the stock market going up doesn't seem to have any relation to the economy. They're right, because when inflation happens, the stocks become more valuable, not because they're more
doesn't
valuable,
change the
but
tax
because more
bracket.
dollars are worth less.
That doesn't
That's what's
change the
happening.
tax bracket and where the money comes from. It
No,
still
it is
comes from
coming
the
from you. You
20%.
just don't realize
It
it.
still comes from the 20%.
No, Britt,
Does it
listen
not?
to what he's. No, listen to what he's saying. You missed it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
The
Go ahead.
issue with deficit spending, just to lay it out again, is that deficit spending creates inflation, and inflation fucks over people who are living paycheck to paycheck primarily. People who have money and have financial planning and can save are able to navigate inflation in a better way. The people who are fucked over by deficit spending are specifically the people who think they aren't paying any taxes. They're getting absolutely fucked by a secret tax that they don't even see, but when they go to the grocery store, they suddenly feel. So don't think it's me. Don't think it's the 20% who's paying. It is absolutely the working man who is paying for our bloated government spending. Okay. They're getting ass raped, and they don't even know it.
I'll grant you that, yes,
Tariffs
whatever,
too.
80% is paying taxes, but the majority comes from that upper 20%, right?
I mean, if you're talking about tax dollars in, I agree with you. But what I'm saying is that when you say it's just the 20%, I think you're missing the part where, you know, your dollar doesn't spend the way it used to. Like I had this crazy experience, man. I went and I looked at the house my mom had when I was growing up, and I was like, I wonder about that house, right? Because I knew what she paid for it, right? And this was in 1990. Shit is worth over double what it used to be. Is that the real estate market going up?
Okay, so you're explaining inflation to me. What you're not doing is telling me why you shouldn't pay for protection.
I do pay for protection.
Right. So that tax dollar that you pay, being in the 20%, is just a simple protection. And what that protection that you're paying for is education for the stupid people. You do realize that, right?
No, man. What I'm telling you, which is honestly, I think it's a weird point for you to fight against. It would be better if we could get better outcomes for less money, so that you don't have so much fucking inflation.
Like
it would be better to have a more efficient system, because
your broke ass is paying more than his rich ass, is what he's saying.
No.
Because of inflation.
No, you don't get it. You don't get it.
No. I'm not paying more than him.
No, you're not paying more than me. You're just getting hurt more than me.
I'm not hurting at all, bro.
I feel like
I'm not hurting at all.
It's starting to hurt me.
You're paying for protection,
I want to go back
and
to
you don't
something
want to accept that. But I wanted to move on to my second point, which is, damn, you know what? I actually go ahead.
Let me spew this one out right quick, and I'll go away. So, she was talking about using the federal government as a job market. If you're using federal dollars to pay federal employees, to tax federal employees, to a deficit spend, you cannot create an economy around that is solid. Cannot be. That is a Mobius eating itself, and you need more calories.
Well, mostly we are living in a maintenance economy anyway. Most of the infrastructure is built, and everything that's being rebuilt is actually not being rebuilt. It's just being maintained. So
here's the
problem. All I said was, let me just clarify for everybody, because this keeps coming up. I just said, I don't mind if my tax dollars go to provide jobs for people. I don't mind lots of jobs that are government based. That's all.
Yeah, I don't mind it either.
The scariest thing in the world is government.
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately, there's a lot of things I would like to have happen. My problem with spending is just one of efficiency. Like, it's just like we can spend on things, but what we're doing right now is we're spending ourselves into an economic disaster. And if we don't wake up and do something about it, it's going to really hurt a lot of people. It's going to hurt my kids. It's going to hurt your kids. Yeah. And the people it's going to hurt the most are the people who aren't already invested into inflation-proof assets. They're the people who are going to get crushed by this. People who already own their home, they're in a much better spot.
What are you talking about? What does inflation
Hold on, let him fucking finish, Doc. Jesus, Lord have mercy.
No, it does.
You just don't understand anything.
The question was, why should we reduce spending? And the obvious answer is deficit spending spikes inflation. That's why we have a spike of inflation, because we're deficit spending. So I'm suggesting that efficiency in the way we spend matters, because it protects us financially, and we should stop spending money we don't have. Now, Lawyerchick's point was well taken. Are there other places that we can cut? Absolutely. And you're going to find me on board to cut all of them. Like any government cut you can propose, I'm probably on board with. But when we're having a conversation about ed spending, ed is not immune from that conversation. I'm not trying to hurt kids, but I do think we can do it more efficiently than we're doing it.
I wanted to point something out before it was that you cut me off. When I said I don't care how much spending, and then we got into this other point, I was actually going to say as long as they're doing their job correctly, right? So if I hire on a contractor, and this is all I see the government as, they are just simply a contractor to me. I hired them on to do a job, and that job is oversight. That job of the Fed is to oversee the state to make sure that they are doing their jobs correctly.
Sometimes I feel like fighting you.
No, just right in the street, right?
Fight me. Okay. But as far as the Fed goes, I don't care how much money they spend as long as they do their job correctly. So I agree with you that efficiency is what's important here. Now, I don't know if you're for rule of law or not, but it seems that whenever it comes to the Department of Education, essentially their biggest role is to ensure civil rights. That is their biggest role. And when you say, I would rather the DOJ do that, now what you're doing is you're actually policing the schools, which is even worse.
Did you say DOJ?
Yeah, I disagree. I mean, they do some civil rights work. I wouldn't call it the majority of what they do. Like by dollars, what they do is they finance student debt. That's what the Department of Education does the most by dollar count. So I'm not sure what you mean. That's what they do the most of. So right. It is a thing they do, but it's student a thing. Loans. It's a student loans. It's a thing that I think DOJ lawyers, in terms of civil rights, would be better at because they're DOJ lawyers and they do civil rights work rather than educational bureaucrats with fucked up priorities.
Well, it's educational lawyers that are working in the Department of Education. They're still attorneys in the Department of Civil Rights.
But we were talking about efficiency, right? Like he's saying he doesn't care what it costs as long as they do the job right. Well, the DOJ currently costs like $4 billion a year. What if it cost $100 billion a year? Would that be okay? 200 billion, a trillion? Obviously at a certain point you're going to say, holy shit!
If it's going to cost that much, they're not doing their job correctly.
Why?
That doesn't make any sense. Your argument is stupid.
No, what do you mean? You said you don't care what it costs as long as
they're not right. If they're not doing their job correctly, that means they're spending over what a budget that I gave them.
So you do care about how much they spend.
You do care how much they spend.
I don't care how much money they spend as long as, and this is the caveat,
it's not too much
as
money,
long as they're doing their job correctly. This is why I said before we got off on this other tangent about, because I wanted to make sure that you're
not going to come out of this looking good. The more you talk, the worse you look.
You are just funding your protection, sir.
Again, I'm not exactly sure what you mean, but I pay tax dollars for a wide variety of purposes. And I would agree protection is one of them because I like property rights and the police enforce property rights. So, I mean, to the extent that's something I spend tax dollars on, I actually agree with you. But
yeah, you like rule of law and you don't want anarchy nuts trying to take over a country and being like
I'm not sure how that relates to DOE policy, but sure.
So essentially,
I have before we test how Thumping Weevil's internet is now. I want to ask Ryan, when you say that you said earlier that the scores since the DOE's introduction have flatlined, can you tell me specifically like what data you're citing for that?
Sure. And unfortunately, by the way, I'm gonna have to drop in the near future. Because it's getting a little bit late for me. But hold on, let me scroll up my notes.
Usually the data is state-based.
I was looking at I want to be precise. I was looking at the National Assessment of Educational Progress called the NAEP Long-Term Trend Assessment from which was they run it over time. And I was looking at reading and math scores.
Okay, perfect.
I don't think they've. When I say that they have flatlined, there's some variation year over year, but they're in essentially a similar place.
Well, what I'm looking at, it seems like it was rising relatively steadily up until the mid to late 2000s, and then cratered, I guess in the last decade, it's kind of dropped a lot. And COVID, I think, contributed a lot to that. But it seems like the floor was rising over those like 30 years at least. The idea that the DOE has had no effect on that.
It was rising because of the thing that I actually agree is a good idea. I just don't want the DOE to do it. I want to get moved to another department, which is Title I spending. So what Title I spending does is it puts money into poor districts, and putting money into poor districts does give you a good return on investment. It's a really, like in terms of being efficient, that's a really efficient way to raise test scores, because as we all know, property taxes are uneven. So some districts have very little money, and the federal money there goes a really, really long way. And I'm not saying we should get rid of that as a program. I just want to move it to a different department. I don't think the DOE needs to do it, and I don't think we need to pay 4,000 DOE bureaucrats to oversee a program that could be run by a different department just as
That's
well.
bullshit. I don't believe you. Republicans haven't done a single thing they've said.
That's
Okay,
true, but I'll grant you
that seems like
that's
a
true. I'm
tangent.
suspicious that it's more complex than that. But even if that was true, the frustration I have, I guess, is that you used it earlier in this debate. Like you were leaning on this as one example of why the Department of Education is bad, right? And then, but you're saying that this is the thing the Department of Education did that was actually had good results. But you said they flatlined, and now you're agreeing, okay, the scores actually went up, but it's because of a thing that I want another department to do.
No, they what I said was absolutely correct. If you look at the data from when before the DOE was created to now, it's a flat line. What you're pointing out is that there was a spike in the middle and then a crater. So yes, the line looks like this,
decade.
But if you are what I said was absolutely correct, which is that if you compare the starting point and the end point, we have not seen gains. So I'm not sure what you're.
But that's extremely reductive, because we did see gains for 30 years, and then we saw a drop in the last decade. So
okay,
it
so
kind of seems like not.
And what happened over that last decade? By the way,
COVID and a lot of other things. Yeah.
Oh, you know what else we had? We had Common
fascist
Core.
president number one.
You know what else we had? We had No Child
right.
Left Behind. We had all the other fucking problematic policies I was pointing out.
Sure, which are all gone now, right? Those are all things that have been gone for 10 years.
Ryan, I know you got great points, but I wanted to get back to what I was saying about civil rights, because yes, you're right. You're right. The funding. Dusty, did you want to talk? Because you seem to keep on.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, well, I don't care that you want to talk. I'm going to go ahead.
Nuck,
and
if you're going to be a spaz, will you please come up so we can?
Because
can we
all you want to do is talk over me. I know. Anyway, so I did want to point out that one of the primary purposes for the DOE at this very moment is civil rights. In fact, it was originally created not in 1980. It was actually made worse in 1980, but it was originally from 1867. That was the original Department of Education. And why was it created? Because we just went through a civil war and they wanted to make sure that people's civil rights were being respected. That is actually the actual primary purpose of the Department of Education originally. And yes, I would agree that it was made worse in 1980. Mm-hmm. And I would love to take it back to before the 10th Amendment, where they say the states have rights over the people. But you know what? We have the system that we have. Yeah, I'm not a 10th Amendment guy. Yeah.
Why not?
Hey, but you don't know. You had me.
You're not a guy, are you?
Clay, you had me hook, line, and sinker there. I totally agree with you that historically we have had better models. And in fact, there are things that we stopped doing that worked better. And that there are things that we might invent in the future that will work better. My problem with the DOE isn't that like it's inherently evil or like, you know, on some kind of like philosophical level. My problem is that I just think it's really inefficient and it promotes bad policy. And if we want to get to the point where we can innovate and be creative and find better solutions, we need to get rid of the shit that doesn't work.
Yeah, and I'm all about abolishment as long as it doesn't just completely destroy the system too. I'm all for it. I'm looking at it from this grand scale and saying if we just get rid of it altogether, then there's going to be a lot of people who are basically out of it.
You need to look up the word abolish.
Clay, why do you
I think that was
with the quality though? That seems to be a 1-to-1 for you. And in education in particular has been studied very consistently. Schools that spend less have crazy great scores. It's not a 1-to-1 on the money. There's a lot of fuckery around, specifically administrators. But yeah.
Well, I mean, you also have to think about.
Like, Clay the question. I would like to hear Clay's answer. I would like to hear yours as well. But Clay,
I don't know what you were asking.
Well, So, like, when we're talking about Ryan. Schools, like schools that are receiving less.
Yeah, I really don't know what you were asking.
Sorry, you're saying schools that spend less.
Josh, can you ask the question again, please? For Clay.
Okay, so a point of discussion is, well, we need to spend money because, and there seems to be this belief. So the radical proposition is kill the federal Department of Education. That isn't to say stop funding education. It's not even to say stop putting federal dollars into education. It's saying here is a layer of management that at best has added no value and at worst has become the bane of our existence and is possibly meant to a nationwide politicization of education. So if we just kill that, like reducing spending, it seems like to you the idea is if we kill that, then we're harming spending in like education in some way. And I don't know where that's coming from.
Well, it's because of oversight. I do want the states to have oversight.
Right, but do you think that
we're buddies?
If you spend more money
Hey,
on
we're
education,
buddies.
you will get better results. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Can I respond to the other thing Josh said? I know, Ryan, you have to leave soon, so I think you'll probably want to engage with this as well. But when it comes to schools that you're saying that like taking less money, having like better results or whatever. Well, I mean, this like we're obviously not accounting for like external factors there, right? Like schools that take in less money.
My whole fucking point is that you're not either. That's it. That's the whole argument. Schools that take in less money probably need less money because they are going to be in wealthier neighborhoods, right? Maybe they're just better with it. Literally, the whole way that these things behave is different.
Can both things be true?
Let me just finish. I'll listen. I'm such a good listener. The presupposition is we spend more money, then we're going to have problems. And what I'm saying is that is not a premise that is unchallenged. In fact, we could go through lots of examples and we say it's not a one-to-one. It's not a constant in the universe. We cannot presuppose that more money equals gooder education.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But like no one at all, I don't even think Clay was arguing that like more money inherently leads to better outcomes. Like I think everyone would acknowledge that the way that money's spent is going to change how those outcomes emerge.
He was saying less money equals bad was what I was hearing.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think that I'm going to just try to wrap up because I do have to drop. Sorry, Sarah. Sorry, everybody.
That's okay.
And please follow me on my channel, if only to yell at me. I appreciate all of you, and you can come over and tell me what an asshole I am there. But
I'm gonna get you to change your name.
Yeah, never. I am the one true Ryan. Fight me. I think if people look at the plan that Trump is proposing with nonpartisan eyes and just say like, what's he really saying? The current plan is not to eliminate any of this spending, though I think some of it maybe should be eliminated, but that's not what they're proposing. What they're proposing is getting rid of the specific glut of educational bureaucrats in the DOE and moving those functions to other departments. And I think that's a good thing. I think that when you recognize that there's an inefficient bureaucracy and you have the opportunity to remove an inefficient bureaucracy, you should do so. And that when you do that, it is a good thing. And it really is that simple on some level. I hope this was useful. Lawyer Chick, I super appreciate that we could have a debate that was kind of cordial. You can see I get much more riled up when I'm sparring with people with typical internet mannerisms. So I appreciate you very much. I appreciate you all. Drop by my channel sometime. Tell me I'm a genius or tell me I'm an asshole. It's all good. Good to see you all. Till next time.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate you joining this evening.
Have a good night.
I like the new Ryan better than the old Ryan.
He's probably
I like them both.
Less disagreeable to you.
Just differently.
I have love for all Ryans.
That Ryan is abusive just to get his
old
points
Ryan
out.
better than Duck and Clay.
I agree with that actually. Yeah.
Weevil,
as far as I can throw him.
think you're with us. Finally, because you're on the cell phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've been really fucking us up.
I'm sorry. My laptop, I don't know. I restarted it. My Wi-Fi has been fine all night, and then I jump on Sarah's, and it just fucks up.
Say the N-word.
Maybe it's
no. Why don't you say the N-word?
How about
I didn't
none
fuck
of us
up everybody's.
Judging by skin complexions here, it's probably best that none of us do.
Well, I'll tell you
Weevil,
what.
I wanted to give you the opportunity to chime back in. You did have your.
I mean, we are way. I think we're way past that.
Okay, that's all right. The parents outside of the school isn't a daycare, but you're more than welcome to jump in on that if you want.
I mean, I pretty much
do actually. Before you do, only because Almighty Nate dropped it, and I will sing its praises. Dropping the big hundo to meet the goal that he didn't even. I didn't even have to say anything. Almighty Nate.
What a good name.
Knows that I will start yelling at people. So everyone in the chat say thank you, Almighty Nate, because now I don't have to yell.
Thank you,
Nate.
So kindly, we're going to keep the show rolling and going. All compliments of my favorite color from Almighty Nate. Thank you. Thumping Weevil, I'll hand it back over to you.
I mean, I said what I needed to say, honestly, because it's a lot of people put their kids in the school systems because they need to. They don't have the ability to teach at home or put them in Catholic school or like private schooling because it's kind of expensive. It honestly is, especially if you have multiple kids. But another thing is like these parents aren't contributing to the district themselves because they do have a lot of meetings. They have a lot of meetings you can put your voice into that you can maybe not change things directly, but you can put your voice into it, just like voting for presidency, and they don't want to do that. They feel like it's a waste of time. And honestly, if we get more parents into the voting system in the school district, that I think it would change to the benefits of the parents that actually want to see their kids grow. And a lot of parents, they put their kids in school and they come home and they don't do anything. Like they don't have any input in things. Like I personally, I sit down with my kids and I do their homework with them. I talk to their teachers, and like my kid, I have my one kid, he has an IEP, so he has speech therapy. He has multiple classes that he goes to outside of his normal class because he needs extra learning. And you know what? I take him even outside of school. I take him to other therapies for learning. So it's a lot of people. I think it comes down to like a lot of lazy parenting that want to blame the school system for their laziness.
I mean, yeah, I think, but I don't think it's necessarily lazy. I think we've just inherited this. This kind of rolls into the sheep method, right? But I think we've just kind of inherited the idea that, oh, the school takes care of our kids. We send them and they do all of this work for us. And we don't have to.
It kind of goes into like we're treating the school system as like a daycare in a sense.
Yeah, laziness or just inability to control kids.
Yeah.
If Lawyer Chick's getting ready to hop out, so if anybody had any additional questions for her, now's the time to speak up or forever hold your peace.
I have a quick one. Lawyer Chick, I'm curious, what are some of the core things that you think, even with the kind of disbursement of a lot of these things that the DOE does through the Big Beautiful Bill and Trump's alleged plan? I'm sure it's a concept of a plan, but what are some core things that you think the DOE, or that you would say the DOE does that would be kind of left behind by just an abolishment position?
Well, I mean, if the Department of Education was just abolished, the students that would suffer the most would be the low-income students that receive Title I funds. So any student that's growing up at a certain income level, those schools, based on the number of students who receive free and reduced lunch, get extra funding for smaller class sizes, for after-school enrichment. I have found in my experience that transportation is actually a great equalizer in that kids who can't get to after school activities are the ones who miss out. I know students who have to take care of little siblings after school, so they can't do the extra activities. And then parents that can drive the Uber parents, parents that can drive their kids around, pay for, some parents pay $10,000 for extra tutoring to get their kids Ivy League ready, right? So the Department of Education actually funds they actually create what are called block grants to each state that again gets dispersed. And it is a lot of bureaucracy. Every school district actually has a Title I coordinator and they have to distribute the money. But I think those students would really miss out. There's a decent amount of money spent for like homeless students, foster students. Career technical education is housed in the Department of Education. That's also something that states do as well and local schools do as well. But I think that would be, I guess, the biggest thing. But when we talk about bureaucracy, I mean, state school districts are just as bureaucratic as the Fed. And that's it. So
But at least it's on a smaller scale, right? I mean,
it's smaller, but not in scale. It's
But it's those are the people that are like, that's their state, that's their stuff, right?
Yeah,
I know I could go to Texas and they're going to run things the way I would appreciate them being run, right?
Well, if you look at a state like California, like the example I gave in California, where you have a school district that is literally an elementary, a middle, and a high school, and has its own entire superintendent administration building, that superintendent makes, I mean, you know, a superintendent salary to superintend three schools. And then there's, you know, 20 miles down the road, there's another school district that has the same structure.
Right.
So there's bureaucratic, you know, overload everywhere.
But if I don't like that school system and how they're running it, I can take my kids down the street to the next one, right? I mean, that's
not
why
necessarily, not if, I mean, schools are based on where you live, and not every parent has the funding or the resources to move to a better state, or, you know, move to a state that has good schools. Now, some parents do this just goes to parenting. Like we said earlier, like I said, not all parents are created equal. Some parents, you know, will do everything to get their kids into a good school. You know, I have a friend here who is renting a studio apartment just so that her kid can go to the school in that area, and her main home is somewhere else. So all parents do feel so differently about education. Some parents, like you said, Sarah, just think that they're dropping their kids off and that their kids will be educated, and that's the responsibility. I had a parent get in my face when we had when I was doing work with like the incarcerated kids. I had a parent yell at me and tell me that it was the school's responsibility to make sure her kid got off the bus and went into the school and went to class. And that if he wasn't getting off the bus and going into the school and going to class, he was 16, that it was the school's responsibility to send him to a military school so that he could, be disciplined and get his education. She had like no accountability at all. So parents is a whole nother show, right? But they're all over the place. So
but when you pacify your parents that way and they think the system is built for that, then so it's like when you cut the umbilical cord, you have to eat on your own. You have to breathe on your own. You have to do these things on your own. And I think that our system has been set up in such a way where people just assume the government's going to take care of everything. So why try? Just the same as with your example of the two smaller schools and being, you know, and I say, well, you could just move to another school district, and you say, well, not everybody can afford to do that. But if you're forced in that position where it's like you have to move where the school that you want is going to provide the best thing that aligns with you the most, you're going to be forced to get up off your ass and figure something the fuck out, right? And when people are forced into a corner and we're not just hand feeding them, oh, well, we're just going to have the same schools all around and everyone's going to get the same amount of education and the same abilities and blah, 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 then I have no incentive to move somewhere where they do it better. There's no challenge. Everybody has the trophy at the end of the day. We remove that, strip it. Now everybody, you have to figure it out, because if you want you force the challenge, thus then you enforce the competition among the schools. Now they have to be better because they want people to bring in those property taxes. They want people to want to move to their schools. Now they're competing with themselves. As of right now, they're not competing with each other. It's the strokes across the board, all the same.
Yeah, I understand that. I see that. But there's so much local control of schools still that every school, you know, go to Fairfax, Virginia, Thomas Edison High School, best school in the country.
Terrible school district.
Fairfax, what? Northern Virginia?
Fairfax, Virginia has a fairly ideologically based school system, not to mention go up and left. There was a young man who took advantage of a young lady in the bathroom because the school has these progressive ideas about the Transformers.
So
that's the school district you're praising.
We can talk about that story you just lied about after she leaves.
That's not what we're talking about. Like what Ryan was talking about.
Are we talking about the
you're
school
looking
districts?
At
Local schools?
We're talking about
you're talking about hating trans people.
Shut the fuck up, Doc. No,
if
that's what Josh is talking about.
We are talking about the school curriculum and the education system. We're not necessarily tapping into the individual policies.
No, in math,
they allow. We can
Fairfax
definitely
County
get there
Circuit
later.
fifth grade math. Sorry, Fairfax County fifth grade math was talking about like CRT in a math class. They were talking about. So I'm a little skeptical of it.
Thomas Jefferson High School. Let me just pull up. Thomas Jefferson High School is ranked number 5 on the national ranking, number 1 in the Virginia rank. Langley High School is ranked number 3 in Virginia.
That's what I'm talking about. So
like they're all ranked.
And maybe CRT is boosting the scores based.
Yeah. So whatever's happening there, whatever it is, those schools are high ranked, and that school is different. A
lot of money.
Huh?
They have a lot of money.
Yeah, Northern Virginia has a lot of high property taxes, right? But that's the competition you're talking about. So parents will get a studio apartment in that district, or in Bethesda, Potomac, Maryland is another place people tend to, if you can find. I mean, in some places like that, there are no apartments to rent. It's like you need to buy the mansion to be able to send your kid here. So that competition that you're talking about, it does exist. If the Department of Education was abolished, like you said, what would be hurt? I feel like Title I would be a huge thing would be hurt. I'm not so bothered by the Office of Civil Rights being moved or not. I mean, migrant education to me is important. Some people it's not. So there's just certain funding sources that would be really affected. And again, there are a lot of class sizes. There's a lot of specialists, reading specialists, particularly after school enrichment. All of that subsidized by the Department of Education. So there is a level of, I think, educational, like economic equity that would be lost.
Can I ask a question, Lawyer Chick, if you've got time for one more?
I was in line next.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Joshua was in line. Sorry. Ryan raised his hand.
That's a great answer, by the way, Lawyer Chick. I appreciate your answer to that question.
Thank you.
Hold on, Doc. Maybe she'll have time for one more. Go ahead, Joshua.
So the Supreme Court overturned the Chevron doctrine recently. I'm assuming you're fairly familiar with this, the Lauper decision.
You mean it's a civil procedure case?
Well, so basically there was this doctrine that said if there's a government agency tasked with overseeing something, that they can weigh in and that you don't need to test it with the judiciary. And so for 40 years, the EPA was the authority. So the 3-letter agencies became these de facto triers of fact. The Supreme Court recently said, you're out of your minds. It's always up to the judiciary to adjudicate law, not for these agencies. And so it really does support federalism. So with that as the backdrop, the whole Department of Education is a 3-letter agency that's behaving in this similarly, imposing its will across the nation, which flies in the face of literally the foundation of it. So do you think that the DOE, existing as it exists now, is consistent with the Supreme Court's overturning of the Chevron doctrine in the Lauper decision?
Well, I don't know that the Department of Education at this point right now, what regulations are they pushing out that...
You're kidding me, right?
Well, yeah, tell me. I mean, Common Core is gone, No Child Left Behind. State teacher credentialing is state-based, curriculum state-based.
So what are they do if they're not influencing national education standards, or if they're not doing these things, then what are they doing? So it sounds like you're collapsing into they're not doing anything. So then
I didn't say they're not doing anything. They're managing block grants for states that go to.
So they're grant administrators. Fine. They're
grant administrators. Absolutely.
We can get other grant administrators.
They're grant administrators. They are data collectors. They look at data on particularly English language learner achievement, math achievement. They crunch a lot of data. They crunch a lot of data at the college level. I don't know. I'm not a data person. I'm sure that matters to some people, but that is something.
Well, I mean, the whole premise of having a federal agency on education providing guidance seems to give this sort of middle outlook on literally ideology. And the entire foundation of this, if I may, and the entire ideology of this country is e pluribus unum. The whole foundation is we acknowledge that there's differences amongst the states, and we allow the states to operate as they will for the purpose of protecting the borders. Now, that's something the last administration had an especially hard time with. But the point is, states are meant to manage the business of the states. They're the people living there. So people living in states like, for example, California, think they should impose their will on the rest of the country, not just their own state. And so when we take a look at federal agencies, these are the vehicles they're used to do them. And if you look at the Federalist Papers, to wrap this up, right, they said they're worried about the larger states like New York bullying the smaller states. And even though this is expanded coast to coast, and we see states like California and New York trying to bully the rest of the country. So why have a federal agency that even allows for that?
Well, again, I'm not saying that the federal agency pushes, I mean, I guess they push guidance on different issues. Definitely under Obama, we got a lot of guidance on civil rights, English language learners, Title IX. So why you're saying, why do I think that's a good thing?
Well, what I'm actually saying is, since you're an attorney, and I'm actually trying to draw on your legal expertise here and not judge you by anything other than the fact that you're here at a panel, right? So the Supreme Court of the United States of America just got done.
Yeah, and I'll just say I don't agree with Chevron. I think that really, especially with EPA is concerned, and I think that our job really is to protect our health. I think that was
right. You believe in authoritarianism, and I don't. And the Constitution is a framework to protect against it. And you want a centralized authority overseeing thought throughout a country that is founded on protecting state autonomy.
Sir, you're making a lot of assumptions about me right there.
You're welcome to push back on any of them. That's the nature of debate.
I mean, I'm not an authoritarian. I'm saying I think that the rolling back EPA regulations is wrong. I think the job of the government,
the federal agency should be able to impose its will on the state.
I mean, I'm just saying, you're asking what I think. I think that the EPA's job, and I think our government, the federal government's job, is to protect our health. And I think rolling back those regulations, that was just a gift to business and the market economy, a free market. Which, if you're about that, cool. But
I just got done telling them into federalism, and you're just dancing around it and going to moral arguments.
No, you're asking me what I think about three-letter agencies. You called me an authoritarian, and I'm just saying
I asked a very specific question.
There are certain things that I do think I am completely comfortable with the federal government pushing guidance and regulation on certain issues. And I think education already is very much a states' rights issue. So the Fed is more there to supplement big ticket items like, filling in any economic gap for students, school construction, migrant ed, and I don't have a problem with that.
Right. And the question wasn't just, and I don't think we're going to get there, but just to actually point to the question. The question was, do you think that the view of the Department of Education, as you're describing it, is consistent with the Supreme Court's most recent take on three-letter agencies deciding policy without a judiciary involved? Because it seems like it's a slap in the face to the foundation of your logic, and you're just saying, but I'm okay with that. And it's like, all right, fine.
Well, give me an example of a policy that the Department of Education has pushed out that Chevron would go against.
So literally the foundation of the Department of Education being remotely authoritative on it at all is a presupposition on the Chevron doctrine. If you don't have the Chevron doctrine, we just ignore any agency as maybe kind of interesting. Courts don't uphold it. It's just noise almost. And so what you're saying sounds like it's inconsistent with the Supreme Court. And again, that's fine. I don't need to beat you up about it, but that was
she asked for an example, really.
Yeah, and again, I didn't agree with the Chevron doctrine at all. I have a lot. I do have, quite a few issues, particularly with this administration. That was something that this administration really pushed through to give the, the entire government more, I guess, less control and more power to the free market. And I think
it's not about free market. It's fine. Maybe you just don't get it. It's fine.
No, I get federalism. It's about business. It's about deregulating business so that they can build, create, and do more. And Trump was very clear about that. He said,
that's not what I'm saying at all.
But you're talking any regulation gets in the way of a free market
that's
economy.
Not what I'm saying.
You're talking about the Chevron case. You're talking about the standard where the court said that the government, federal regulations cannot stand alone, if I'm summarizing that correctly.
No, right? It's saying that federal agencies cannot be the decider of fact on issues. It's for the judiciary. The legislator writes the law,
right?
And then the judiciary adjudicates it. That's
on government regulations that these agencies have created.
What's that?
That they're talking about regulations that these agencies have created.
No, this is. No, and I love
which is why it would be important for you to bring up an example, Josh.
No, let me explain. No. Let me she just said something really important here. The fact that you say let laws they created Agencies are not tasked with creating laws, but they operate. Please, may I? It's
But
not
you
gonna
said laws. It's not a law.
me-
It's a regulation. A regulation is different than a law.
True.
Okay, so if I may, the legislature is tasked with making laws, and within a very narrow scope, agencies can infer what the legislature meant. Over 40 years, that became these three-letter agencies that get increasingly funded, that are very susceptible to lobbying money, because you don't need to corrupt the whole government. You just need to corrupt a little tiny agency and shove money in it, and then you can take the weight of the federal government and beat every state over it. Our founding fathers did not like this. It's baked into our structure that we avoid this. And you call this free market capitalism. It's not capitalism. It's federalism. It's literally the function of how 50 separate states are able to function without having this offensive federal government telling them all that to behave the same way.
I understand that, but the practical implications of this is that it just everything can be done for the highest bidder, and there's very little federal oversight on private industry or industry in general. So
no, I'm just saying it has to go through appropriate channels.
So what it, in theory, sure, it's fine to somebody who thinks the way you do, but the actual application of that holding is going to be that the highest bidder is going to be able to do whatever they want without much oversight or regulation. They're going to get around quite a bit. It's just it's freeing up regulation. And again, Trump was very clear about that.
No discussion is complete without invoking Trump.
No, I'm just saying it was his Supreme
Trump.
Court, and he commented on it. So I mean, I'm just saying that's where it came from. You know, that's what helped me understand it. I mean, he was very clear about doing this out of the gate. Was, you know, regulations have always gotten in the way. And I'll just say this whole administration, just like we were saying earlier, and I'll finish with this, you know, the Department of Education and all the three-letter agencies are always because at the whim of whatever administration is in power, because that's the person that appoints the secretary of each agency. Do you think the Department of Homeland Security should exist? Do you think ICE should be abolished? Do you think that the states should just do their own enforcement of immigration as well? Like,
I think the federal government, as outlined in the Federalist Papers and the Constitution, and literally everything in our founding documents was protect borders. So I think above all things, they should protect the borders.
Okay.
The state or the federal?
Okay, so regulations are okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
National borders. To answer Clay's question, we're talking about federalism, the country's borders.
Okay.
The federal government's obligation is to protect each state's external border and all of the country's borders. That's their task.
Okay.
That's one of the many.
Agreed. But it's a specifically enumerated task. Something specifically, if we say, hey, we've got people coming over the fence, we go, hey, federal government, that's your job. And then the last administration's like, no, it isn't. Texas
so what's another other than defense?
Yeah,
it's in the same clause.
What's another what?
What's another task that the federal government's duty is? And it's in the same clause, by the way. Defense?
I don't know where you're going.
You don't know what the other one is? General welfare? It's the general welfare clause.
Literally working on two subsection 1983 cases. Honestly, it's late.
Yeah,
what is it? I'll take your word for it.
Working on too. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah, waiting for your answer if you want to provide it. No? All right.
Necessary and proper clause?
Nope.
Yeah, that one. The general welfare clause. You know what that one is? The one, it's the general welfare and the common defense. That one, that clause. Yeah, that one. Isn't that where?
What is so? I'm hearing a subtext, but I'm not hearing a clear argument.
Well, I mean, because you keep invoking that the only, or at least I know that you said there are other things, but then when you said there are other things, I asked you what are those other things other than defending the borders, and there's literally one other thing in that clause. And then I
was making a point about federalism. You asked about borders. I think we answered that pretty clearly.
No, you kept invoking borders, which is defense.
So I literally was also citing the Federalist Papers and literally like the colony construction at the time. Yeah. So for I don't know how much you'd like to masturbate over history, but I like the
You
Federalist
keep going
Papers.
to the defense clause. We're talking about education. Where does the defense part of that clause fall into the conversation? I don't get
And
it.
before you do that, I at least want to give a lawyer chick the opportunity. Did you want to go ahead and step away? I didn't know if you were like waiting for the break.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening, and if anybody has anything else to chat with me about, I'll stay on for a couple more minutes and
Doc-
then hop off.
One small
Doc, I
question.
know you
Yeah.
wanted to go directly, and then we can let Joshua and Clay
Yeah.
get back to it after she finishes this.
Yeah. So for most people, I think relative to a political belief versus just having an opinion about something, I think intelligibility is a good starting point. I think most would agree that if we can have a conversation or identify what we disagree on, that's more useful than, copying the Destiny, orbiter style and throwing 1,000 things out at once. I think that's more genuine as well. So I'm curious what you would say if I think, look, as a progressive, schools generally work. There's food programs, support staff, there's teachers, there's superintendents and people within the executive of administering the budget. And sometimes budgets fall short. And a conservative might say, well, look, parent choice remains important. We need to support charter schools. We need to have discussions about cultural values in schools. What would you say back to that based on your conversation you had tonight with Ryan in terms of just helping people that are here, have been here for 3.5 hours to get something out of the conversation that they can run with?
You mean in terms of like something they can do to?
Yeah. So if you have something that just sort of brings it all together, what would you say to me about that?
As a parent? Am I talking to a parent?
Well, so I was thinking in terms of political beliefs, like I mentioned, saying this is maybe a reason I'd vote. This is a reason I'd turn the news on. This is a conversation I'd have with my spouse or significant other, the other parent.
I mean, I would say be very involved in schools. And I'll also say, I think schools have gone way too far as regardless of my personal politics, schools have gone way too far with allowing kids to choose their gender. I think that's crazy, even in elementary school. With
all right, I'm gonna take off. That's good enough.
I mean,
have a good one. No, it's all good.
No, let me finish responding.
No, you try.
Okay, parent. That's cool. I'll tell everybody. Parents need to be involved. Parents just need to know and be involved. I think there's policies in many school districts that parents aren't even aware of. And if a fourth grade, and I'm also very much, and this is where it's like I kind of align with America First, bizarrely enough, on parent choice. There's things that kids should be learning at home and not at school. And a lot of that goes to gender and sexuality. And a lot of teachers just feel a different way about that. And it's just something that, I differ about with people that are even in my own political, feelings. But I feel very differently about those issues taught in a school because those things should be taught at home. There's no reason, a 10-year-old should have to, come home from school and ask questions about sexuality. That's just a no.
But he gave you the chance to repent.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know what he gave. He gave me a chance of nothing.
How far would you extend that? Like, what if a kid comes home and they're like, "Hey, I tried to ask my teacher about Johnny has apparently has 2 dads. I tried to ask my teacher about it, and because of whatever conservative policy, the teacher's not allowed to say. They're like, "Oh, we can't talk about that. We can't talk about Johnny's dads."
Hey, a teacher's not allowed to tell a student who they voted for. So if a kid was going to ask me why does Johnny have 2 dads, go ask your parents.
Not really, no.
That had nothing to do with it. What?
It's personal.
That's a really good way to sidestep the convo.
Yeah, no, I'm not sidestepping it. I'm saying a teacher
go home and ask mom and dad. That's the best way to handle that.
Well, hang on. Doesn't this
what about sometimes they have 2 dads?
Doesn't this inherently let me respond. Doesn't this inherently target or put this child in a particular situation where suddenly they're like, we can talk about everybody else's parents. We're not allowed to talk about my parents at school.
Well, okay, so my direct answer to something like that is he has 2 dads. I'd be like, people love who they love. That would be
say that either.
That might go too
don't
far.
say that
based on some
either.
of the
People get fired for
sensibilities.
saying that very thing.
Yeah, that
I mean, you
that,
know,
that
that
is
very
something
thing
that
what
would
you
go
just
too far
said.
under some policies.
But hold on,
like-
hold on. I wanted to respond for you because look, Ryan, you're conflating with what the parent, what she's supposed to say, which is go ask your parents, with versus what the kid is now saying, which is all of a sudden, well, I can talk about this person's parents and this person's parents, which is what the kid's saying, but that does not change that the teacher still needs to say, talk to your parents about that.
And I don't think we would say go ask your parents, but maybe I don't know. Maybe I would say something like, you know, that's not something we can talk about in this class. You know, I would just go ask your parents. But
So why would like two gay parents be more taboo than like two straight parents? Like that being brought up, like what if the
It's
question
only
was,
because
does
homophobia
everybody
exists,
have
right?
like a
That's the
mom
only
and
reason.
dad?
Nothing to do with that. It's personal
no,
business. It's
and that's not what I'm
personal
talking
life.
about either. But hold on. There's issues in some school districts where they're introducing books at a very young age, like that are part of like elementary school curriculum that cover issues of gender and sexuality. And I am just saying that I'm not sure that I would.
Yeah, which aspects of it do you think are good and bad? I'm curious.
Well,
I've never
I
heard
know
of you
what
before tonight. I
age-
kind of just walked in. I'm kind of like, I'm curious on what your views are
What are my views on gender
on
and
like
sexuality?
various aspects of where like we should like draw the line at sex ed in general.
Well, I mean, it depends on the school district. Some schools don't even teach it anymore. So I'm just going to roll with the curriculum on that. And I've always been like that. I just don't talk about these things. I don't teach science,
You're just
health.
not that interested in it, is what you're saying.
Oh no, I'm not. Why are you putting words in my mouth? It's not that I'm not interested in it.
I'm trying to get into a frame.
I'm very interested in it, and I actually do transgender name changes and work for lots of young people, helping them go to college and change their IDs. Like as a lawyer, I am the lawyer auntie for transgender youth. I've gone into jail with transgender kids to make sure they're okay. So like personally, yeah, I work with these young people, and when I'm saying it, and so I have allies and experience.
I didn't mean to frame it as like something a bit more like confrontational. I was more so trying to like garner like how much of an issue you think it is.
Well, I think, do I want to, a 6 or a 7-year-old, like should a second grader be exposed to ideas of transgender, choosing your gender preference? That's a decision for their parents to make at that age. So I'm talking really at the elementary school level, because that's where it's been the hottest issue. I think in middle school, the kids are so exposed to social media. They're out there and they're exposed to it in spite of their parents and their schools, right? Because the world. But I'm talking about kids like 5th grade and under, and particularly the lower elementary level grades. I think if that, look, I know Muslim families this is where Muslims and Christians really come together, is on these issues around curriculum in the early grades in the public schools.
Also women and not liking them very much, but
so how do I feel about it personally? I mean, I'm fine with it. I literally work legally to help transgender young people quite a bit. But again, it's just young. And I mean, I don't know if you have a small child at home or if you raised a small child, but isn't that stuff that you would want to cover with them and not necessarily have them covered, in elementary school by who knows what teacher and how they're going to cover it?
I mean, personally, I think like kids are kind of able to start developing their schemas on what gender are like pretty young, and they kind of develop that over the years. And I think it's probably perfectly fine for them to kind of, based off their like, albeit limited understanding of gender, like 10 or 11, so I kind of like maybe begin to have those conversations, but not really kind of get deep into like what that entails until like they're pubescent.
That's 5th and 6th grade. That's upper level. I'm talking about lower level elementary, like 6, 7, 8 years old. That is what
I still think kids kind of have like a basic understanding of what men and women are, and they have that capability of kind of fleshing that out from themselves. Again, albeit with way more limited information than they would in later years, but I don't know. I personally don't see a lot of like negative utility in allowing them to explore that. Unless
I
they
get
like
that.
make it
But if you were
obsessive.
a parent that felt differently, you might feel it. If you were a parent that was
Yeah,
raising
of course.
that
Yeah,
had
yeah.
different beliefs. So that's you and me. If it was my kid, sure, but I would want to talk about it with them anyway. I don't know what teachers how they're gonna cover that. It's very new ground. It's new ground in the law. It's unsettled law. And it's actually very much at risk. Gender preference is very, 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 very vulnerable right now.
Absolutely.
I agree, and I think that's like a really big issue at the moment.
Yeah, I'll say, look, you don't you don't strike me as someone who's very has animosity towards these people. So I appreciate you sharing the stories that you're the ally work you do and stuff is actually really cool and really important, especially right now. So
thank you.
And forgive me if it sounded like I was really confrontational, like that. My perspective, my question was more so to kind of gauge it where you believe like policy should go, and I didn't mean for it to be like, I don't know, like aggressive.
So my question to you guys about this kind of conversation, and obviously Ryan's here, so this conversation is going to come up. Would you want teachers essentially, when little Johnny asks, "Is God real?" Would you want that teacher to have that conversation with that child?
It's a good question. Think about that.
I imagine this happens like all the time. So I mean, like I imagine probably every school in America has had a child ask a teacher this question. So I'm not opposed to like them having some protocol for how they answer it, and that's going to vary by teacher. I wouldn't want to put regulation on how they answer that question, like personally.
If you already have that built into a curriculum, you don't have to worry about how it's going to be answered.
Well, why would you? Building that into a curriculum would then lock in how it's answered to people who might not believe in God, right? So I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to teach kids the lie that God exists.
Essentially, everybody believes something different.
Freedom of religion, because of the First Amendment and freedom of religion, the schools, the public schools, the teachers, the staff, they are not allowed to have that conversation. So essentially, with this, it's gender ideology. It's like, what do I want to choose? That is the exact same thing.
Well, I'll tell you, the district I'm affiliated with now is like gender preference, whatever they want. You don't have to tell, you cannot tell their parents. That's another thing. If the child is at school expressing one gender, you are not allowed to let their parents know.
Wait, is that like universal in any case, or is that if they're
that's in a specific school district that I am affiliated with?
Right, but the question is like, is that like in any case where the child's expressing this, you're not allowed to tell the parents, or if there's
every school district's going to have a different policy?
I know like California had something about people were talking about for a long time and what it was, which I think is, we can argue about whether or not it's justified, but like the position the schools districts had was that if the student was giving signs that there was like the parents would take issue with this, and the student communicated it to them, and I think that's a much more defensible position where it's like, okay,
that makes sense.
I don't want this child to be in an increasingly abusive scenario because they're communicating something to me they don't feel safe communicating to their parents. I think that's actually really important to leave some caveats for students like that.
It makes sense. And there's a lot of parents that need education around it, and kids are, I don't know, it's just, I come from a different generation when it comes to gender. So I've actually learned a lot from young people about gender, like a lot. It's been very interesting for me, my own personal understanding of it the past 10 years. For me, it was like, boy, girl, that's it. Growing up, and now it's just like vastly different. So
look, in about 20 years, they'll be forced to memorize and study all 96 and counting genders.
It would be
97.
It'll be mandated.
Interesting.
97.
It's not 96. Actually, Daniel made a video on this. There's like literally a billion of them.
What?
I would say there's arguably, I'd say there's at least as many genders as there are, in a sense. And this is a kind of my own linguistic argument. Like there are as many genders as there are people, because everybody experiences their gender in a slightly different way. It's not uniform. So
that's actually a really good answer for a kid.
That is over
I could just
it's supposed to be.
No, wait. What about
Like
the
another way
multiple
to-
genders? It wouldn't that be like duplicate, like more, multiple? So it's really
Yeah,
infinity.
There's some people that have more genders per capita than others.
Well, I mean, Ryan, that's
We call
like
those illnesses.
that's like arguing that there's like the shade of blue, right? I'm gonna look at this. I'm gonna look at blue, and you're gonna say, yes, that's blue. Yep, it's blue, 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 blue. How we perceive the color blue, maybe like I'm like, oh, that's kind of like a light royal blue, and you're like, nah, it's more like a sky blue, whatever, because the subjectivity of our eyes. However, it doesn't negate the fact that it's just fucking blue, Ryan.
Well, I mean, you say that, but it is interesting to note that like people perceive colors differently. And when we talk about like colorblind people, right? They're going to experience color spectrums very differently. And
it also the difference.
I think it's interesting.
Hold on. Are dicks all a different size?
I haven't.
I'm assuming yes.
I'll let you know.
I'm gonna assume yes.
Does that change the fact that we call it a dick or a penis, peni?
I mean, sometimes we'll call them chodes.
Does it change what it is because they're all different sizes and they all move different and they all pump?
Well, no, but we're not talking about dicks. We're talking about gender.
Well, the way that we define penises is just like in accordance with what their like structures are and like how they form the shape of it. Like gender's a little bit of a different thing in that we form the schema itself like kind of socioculturally. Like it's context dependent on like where you are at a given point, like all sorts of shit.
Isn't gender like actually related to the genetics? Isn't that like why it's said gender?
I mean, that might be like the etymology.
Maybe the etymology at one time, like what originated it was like that, but that doesn't like. So, like, what's your view on like what awful means?
You're just never gonna have a standing clarity.
Wait. Hold on. Like,
I feel like I have
extreme. What do you take awful to mean?
Hang on. Wait a minute.
I'm dying over Cornell conservatives' facial expression and Mama Tomato's comment.
Yeah. So I want this question answered. Like, what do you take awful to mean?
Take what awful? Like
the word awful.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, okay. That is where gender came from. Fantastic.
It is. Yes,
yeah. So like, what do you take awful to mean?
You're welcome.
Well, gender comes from the infamous John Money. When he created
that's a really great sidestep, but I'm like asking for what you mean by awful.
Exactly true.
Like if I say something's awful, like what do you take that to mean?
I'm sorry. What did I say was awful?
So if I say something is awful, what do you think I mean when I say that?
You could mean various different things, my man.
No, what about in today's context? Like,
I mean,
9 times out of 10,
even in today's context, you literally could mean anything.
It's just
whatever you want.
Can we bootstrap this argument and just get it?
This is great. You're fucking sidestepping it all. So what we take awful to mean in today's time is something that's bad, when it used to mean at one point that it was awe-inspiring, which is a good thing. So when we're just basing all words on what the etymology of it used to be. Like you get into these like really weird little conundrums where
it can still mean the same.
You know, you have to look for the first meaning of the word every time to figure out what it actually means. So,
I think that a great example of this is that we call it the Department of Education, but according to Ryan earlier, it seems to be the Department of making everyone dum-dums. So it's a good.
Well, he's not wrong.
Are you saying the word awful, or are you saying
yes? I'm talking about the word awful. I'm talking about the word
awful.
I'm talking about the word awful.
Awful.
Yeah, that's where you are.
I'm going to hop out. I'm going to use this one. Sarah, thank you for hosting. Reach out anytime. Everybody, it's Lawyer Chick on YouTube. It's Lawyerchick-5000 on TikTok. I have a lot of videos up there, all kinds of fun law things. And Sarah's on TikTok now. I'm glad. You got to start doing panels.
I got to start. Can you go live on TikTok from StreamYard?
I don't think you can from StreamYard. There's a funny thing about it, but let me research that for you and see how it's doing it now. I don't do much lives on TikTok, but it's definitely time for the panelists to get over there and start.
I think I don't know. I haven't experimented with TikTok's API all that much, but I think you have to stream separately from their platform. But I think you can screen share your StreamYard.
I think that's the way it works.
Yeah, that's
and
how you
TikTok
get around
has
it.
its own thing for
like
panels.
Yeah,
dashboard.
you have to kind of
People can pop
you have to
up.
censor your panelists a lot.
Yeah, people can pop up, and
Like
I don't know.
instead
I
of
just it's fun to see some of
saying
these
stuff like
there.
kill, you have to say unalive. Like instead
we
of
still
rape,
have
it's
those
rape.
rules.
It's the
Like,
same
Yeah,
as
we-
YouTube.
yeah.
It's the same
you
but like
glossary.
it's like
careful on
way more
Yeah, harsher.
autistic there. Like it's
Is it?
it
You'll
is
just
way
get a
worse.
whole different. It's a whole different vibe. I don't know. I would just like to see some of this panel version vibe, like the culture there, and see how it translates to TikTok. I've been kind of waiting for it, so I was glad to see it pop up.
I agree.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
still
I'm also gonna
figuring
hop
out
off
the
because I got my raid to catch. I just wanted to say hi,
Yeah,
pop
it's
in,
really
do
nice
some
to meet
debate pro shit.
everybody.
Thank you, Lawyer Chick. I appreciate you. This was good. It was a really good debate. I liked it.
Nice meeting you, Lawyer Chick.
Ciao for now.
And Bones, you said you're heading out as well.
Yep. Have fun, y'all. Or you do whatever, call each other retards, etc., etc. Peace.
Fair enough. Bye, Bones.
All right, carnal conservative. Why should we abolish the Department of Education?
And if you guys are
Because it is
okay,
literally making people dumb.
I'm gonna go use the ladies' room. And are you guys sticking around?
At least for a little bit longer.
for a little bit. For a little
Okay, I'm gonna go grab a sandwich and use the ladies' room. I think you'll be fine on your own. There's only 3 of you. If you fuck this up, like I don't know how to help you.
I
Like
blame
there's
Ryan.
3 of you, and I'm stepping away. I think you can manage yourselves for like 5 minutes.
Actually, I blame
Penis,
Duck.
penis.
All right, I'll be right back.
So much trust.
Buy a cuckable mug.
Yeah, so why should we abolish the Department of Education, carnal conservative?
It's not working. And the free market would just be a much far better alternative for everyone involved. The quality of education would rise. Teachers would become better at their craft. There'd be accountability from the free market. There would be, how would you say, just all better results all around. And you would actually have a far more eclectic and diverse experience with education. You would have people who actually cared about the subjects they teach. You would actually have an increase in teacher pay from the collectives of the children that they teach from their parents in that manner. And
what's your evidence for
would
any
be far more
even one of those things?
Evidence that
yeah.
Why should we continue with the Department of Education? It's not working. It's a
Well,
constant.
I don't even agree. Yeah, what's your evidence? Can we start? We can start there with.
Okay.
What's your evidence for that? It's
It's
not
so
working.
bad, Ryan, that even college level children can no longer properly can't even do basic arithmetic. Like the even that is demonstrably gone down. Like it's not even debatable.
It hasn't gone down. So if anything, I mean, I was talking earlier to Ryan that because he cited in his opening, I believe it was his opening or early on in the debate, he was saying that scores have flatlined since the introduction of the Department of Education, but we both looked at the same data set, and it seems like that's not the case. Actually, the floor was rising for about 30 years until the last decade. It started to go down back towards what it was initially, but it's never actually dropped back below what it was or what they were before the Department of Education. So that just doesn't follow based on like the data.
So the USA's position in education has gone up or down since the induction of the Department of Education.
It went up for 30 years and it started to go back down in the last 10 years. It's gone like closer to where it was at the start. At least at least in terms of like the raw scores, I guess. They were rising for 30 years.
That's not what I heard. So what was the difference in the last 10?
I mean, there's a lot of things. It was especially COVID that had like the sharpest drop. The COVID era was probably the biggest issue.
I just got here, so give me a second.
You're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as you can probably tell by now, Ryan, I'm not for abolishing it entirely. Like if we were going to abolish it, I would want that gradual abolishment. Like anything that's too crazy, like we're just going to get rid of the Department of Transportation. Bye, Felicia. That'd be crazy, right? So essentially, like when people say abolish, I mean, I'm looking at like what we've done in the past as far as the word goes. Abolish slavery, right? Get rid of it. It was a bad thing. We got rid of it, right? But it was entirely unlawful, right? So, just to kind of just get rid of it entirely. I'm not about that. Now, I would downscale a lot. I like the original purpose of it, which is essentially just looking at, the data that they collected, ensuring that civil rights are respected, and then reporting on it when they're not to the DOJ. That is a fair way to handle things. I feel like there is a lot of money being spent. I don't really, like I told them, I don't really care how much money they spend as long as they're doing their job correctly, which I feel they're not. So there's a lot of waste to be cut in that regard. But essentially, I look at it and I go, okay, yeah, we could abolish it. But essentially what you're going to do at the end of the day is you're going to get rid of all the reporting to the federal government that would happen at that state level, where they come in and say, okay, states, what are you doing? And then they collect the data, say, okay, well, this data isn't, looking good. We're going to need some adjustments here, but also, these civil rights violations, we need to deal with these as well. So, I'm not about abolishing it, but getting rid of a lot of the waste funding, I'm all about that.
Sure, I think it's a really great point. I'm sorry, I'm sad I forgot about this when Ryan was on here, because I think it would have been interesting to see his contention with this. But like, and I think Lawyerchick was pushing back on this kind of line as well. But like, if we get rid of that reporting body, right, that central reporting body, then it makes it a lot harder at a national level to see where schools are failing, right? It makes it much easier for states to kind of cover up if they have like some schools that are like falling way behind, and I think that's a pretty big concern for. I mean, these are kids, like these are kids' lives, right? Who were directly impacted by the states, their ability to report or not report on how those kids are doing, and that's I don't know, that scares me, frankly.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I noticed too is, so like, yeah, 1980, everything was basically turned on its head, and essentially funding went, out the wazoo for the department, and all these extra, programs and things to incentivize. All that was created. But prior to that, of course, literally just prior to that was the civil rights era, where a lot of things changed legally, right? So there were many, like, I mean, you're familiar with it, I know, with the Jim Crow era and all of that. A lot of that ended, really kind of stretched all the way into the civil rights era of the 60s and the 70s. But what happened also is that Big Daddy government came in and started doing certain things like the Terry stop, like qualified immunity in the Supreme Court, but also some of these three-letter agencies became these monstrous bureaucracies, where essentially now they've got all this extra funding. And who is that going to come from? It's going to come from the people, which essentially, like I said, again, how much money they're spending, I don't have a problem with that, but it's if they're doing their jobs correctly. And like the main people in charge of that are the same people who are essentially lobbying it, which is the insanity of it. It is that 20% that is paying the majority of that funding, but also they're sitting there going, we want that. And I would say that, of course, it's two sides to that argument, because you got the left and the right. But to hear the two sides go at it, a lot gets lost in the minutia of, well, why is this taking place? And so when you look at 1980 and moving forward, all of these extra programs, all of this funding to this department, it's kind of ridiculous. Would you agree with that?
Well, actually, I want to bump back in on what Ryan was saying, how he was hoping that on the national level we could keep the states kind of in check and accountable, and ensuring kids aren't being left behind, and some kind of standardized testing or some way to check the data and check this of some sort to ensure we're up to par. But how do we know the federal government even is doing that? I mean, yeah, we could say, oh, they're data testing, they're doing this, but what the fuck are they doing about it, and why? If not, they actually just restrict funding. They take away funding for schools that don't get up to par and up to standard, and actually hurts them more. I think letting the states deal with their own shit, and they are charged with taking care of their children. They are charged with doing those things. And that's why you create the competition, throw it back in there. I'm not going to live in a fucking state that's not taking care of my kids.
Well, I mean, I get all I was pointing to was like having a centralized body for reporting so that we can even analyze like how the states are doing. I think states in general are going to be incentivized to for the competition. They're going to be incentivized to sell themselves as having the best test scores possible and the best like school results in general. But if there's not some body that's evaluating that, some independent body that's actually checking on whether or not that's true, right? And if the states are able to kind of maneuver the data in some way so they can put on their like they can say, hey, we're the number one in this, we're the number one in this, but like according to who? According to just them. They're just saying it, and like we don't. What mechanism do we have to say or to push back on that without like as we have the DOE currently?
Are you not able to see that with other things? I mean, we have competitions, academic competitions, sports competitions, all of these things. It's pretty obvious. You can see with your own eyes. And not only that, if I were to utilize my own basic knowledge of what I can see in front of me, I'm going to look around and look at schools or states where their economy is flourishing, the homes are flourishing, the kids are flourishing, everybody on the nose is flourishing. I'm going to take that as a general concept that maybe the schools are too, right? And then if I could see, oh, well, they're maintaining rankings in these academic leagues, in these sports leagues, and all of these other things, that's probably where I'm going to say, all right, they're bringing home the trophies. Whereas at this point, yeah, I can look at data and say, oh, well, these schools are testing better, or this is this or this. That doesn't mean that they're actually the best. It just doesn't.
Well, I agree it doesn't, but I don't think the other thing you mentioned would show that either. I mean, you might be able to find out what schools and what districts are doing best, but it wouldn't tell you necessarily what all like across the board. Like, I guess the thing is that there are likely, I think, to be schools that don't get properly represented in this data, right? And those schools, they like, you might see all the representation from the high performing schools on all those academic teams, and they might even be the best in the country, right? But that doesn't mean that state is actually looking after all of their kids. It would mean that they are looking after the kids who are in those districts who are participating who are you're seeing at those high levels, right?
If the kids do well, do you think the economy around them 10 years from there, 20 years from there is going to continue to do well? Ideally.
Right around them, yes. In the immediate vicinity, yes.
And even more so if the economy is doing well, more than likely the schools are probably going to be doing well too.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, better schools are almost always
well. So I can look at outcome. I
right?
can look at outcome of a state, of a city, a town, and how it's doing externally, and say, okay, well, let's more than likely internally, because you got to start on the inside and work your way out. And that's usually how things happen. And I think when we start with our children as our basic starting point and foundation, outward, our economy does better. Outward, our people do better. Outward, our families do better, because as children, we made them better to start with, and they just continue to thrive and do even more from there. I think I can look at a state as a whole and how they're doing on the economy and other features, and overall, I can determine that the schools are probably going to be all right.
Can I say one more thing before? Because it's a good comment, but I agree with almost everything you said there, but it doesn't seem to speak to like if there are schools and districts that aren't actually doing well, and the states are just not reporting on those schools properly because they can get away with it, and then they're investing like so much more disproportionately in all these other schools at these schools' expenses. Like I don't want them to be able to do that, I guess.
But when you remove the federal aspect, the parents are now having more of a say in what's going on in their school. The parents are going to be more involved. They're going to be holding the school accountable to the stuff.
Yeah, but
right now we are subjected, right? Like my county school is not only subjected to our county policies, but we're also subjected to all this federal stuff too. When you put it back in the county's hand, now I have actual voting power on what what kind of curriculum and what kind of things are going to happen in that school. The parents are going to speak to it. So the parents in that community are going to want what they want, and they're going to allow what they allow, and they're going to hold that school accountable to stuff that they demand because they can.
This is already how it is. Like the DOE doesn't, the DOE does not set curriculum.
We are subjected to everything that comes down. Yeah, they are.
They literally are. It's illegal. They're not allowed to do it.
All of that funding that we want.
And so the Common Core example, I is another thing I didn't get to push back against. I was looking into it further. This ended 10 years ago. Like the incentive programs that existed under like No Child Left Behind and stuff, they haven't been around for a decade. So this isn't even this example is null and void at this point.
Sorry, I missed that.
But the schools are still doing Common Core under some way or another because the states, for whatever reason, have actually decided that they want to do it, not because the federal government's pushing it on them or incentivizing them to do it through funding. Like that no longer exists.
Alexander says, I so often hear the free market has accountability, the government doesn't. But would like to ask you, is that universally true, if only in some cases? Then is this one of those cases? If it is, what's your evidence?
Yeah, I mean, I actually would go against anybody who actually said that the free market has accountability. I don't believe it does. I don't believe it has any accountability without the government. The government, it literally is the standard. So companies write bylaws, but the only way that those bylaws are really enforceable is, what is it they call it? Forced doctrine. Who does forced doctrine? The government. That's it. That's the only ones that can actually put their hands on people, as in enforce the law. So yeah, no, the free market doesn't have real accountability without the government. It just doesn't.
Well, it doesn't have force, but it does have results. It does have whether or not the product is useful or as valuable as, say, another product. Just because there's no force being physically exerted, or shall we say enforced, doesn't mean that there is not a force in play. There is definitely in the free market a passive force at play of quality, of preference, of quality. That it is certainly accountable in that regard.
But that's not accountability. That's just free trade. So if I don't want to do business with you because I don't like your product, or if I want to do business with you because I do like your product, that's just a peaceable agreement. That's not force. So yeah, I mean, I agree that that's a great system, but that's not accountability. That's like accountability is in reference to how are we going to hold this person or this company.
I don't think when they said accountability, they meant, putting someone behind bars. I think accountability meant choice.
No, accountability is not a choice. So account to hold somebody to account.
I think you're missing the point when the contrast is an agency where the state has a monopoly on the choice.
Alexander says that's not true. The free market is only accountable where the cost to exit is low. The moment you start looking at logistics like location or monopolies, the accountability vanishes instantly.
No. The exit is the cost to exit. The cost to exit is you just leave. Like, I stop doing business with you. There is no accountability. That's not accountability. Accountability is I hold you to account. Like, that's how that works. Like, you owe me money. We count that number up to 10. And then I come and grab that from you because you